What's happening?
What's going on, man?
Good to see you, brother. How are things your way?
Life is good. Life is
Good.
fantastic. No complaints a bit.
No complaints.
Yeah.
And I love that. It's great seeing you. I was really looking forward to being able to jump in here and catch up and be able to extract some of your wisdom and knowledge and value and really pour back into the community. So I know a lot of folks haven't had the chance or familiar with you or your backstory, man. I would love for you to kind of unpack a few things, especially life before real estate.
Yeah, most definitely. So just real quick, 30,000 foot view. So prior military, I'm a former Marine. And after the military, I fell into the .com bubble. And had a corporate job for a couple of years, and it wasn't long before I scratched that entrepreneurial itch, if you will. Started a tech business, and was very blessed. Grew that company to truly a global organization, and I sold it in 2015. And then it was that time my wife and I moved out of the suburbs, bought a couple of acres just to have some elbow space, and it was during that move. That I just told my wife, I said, this didn't look too challenging, right? This was a lot of customer service, a lot of process. And I said, that's what I've built my career on. So let's go. And so she challenged me to go ahead and get my license, and I did. And ever since then, it has been just a remarkable journey. It really has. It's been able to change the trajectory of my life, but as well as my family's life too.
Yeah.
And it's not all roses, right? I know we make it as agents, we make it look really easy, right? We always have the smile on our face. We're always bubbly, cheery, happy. But man, when you start doing this for a living, life gets tough. So we found out very quickly. I was a single agent for about 2 years, maybe 3, and we were doing, I was doing well. The numbers looked good. We were closing clients. Everybody was happy, but I was working 80 hours a week. I created a job. I didn't build a business. I created a job. And my wife looked at me one day and said, look, you need some help, because what good is all this? What good is everything that you've done if you're dead, right? If you work yourself to death, what good is that? And sometimes I'm a little thick. And so I needed that hit over the head to say, okay, you better start leveraging some of this and some assistance. So,
right. Yeah, for sure. Do you think that some of that, hard work ethic, DNA of kind of growing up, the Marine Corps to the, into the corporate space and really that discipline and structure, carrying it in and then just trying to figure it out and do it on your own? Like what was that pigheadedness? What was that stubbornness that for you to be like, man, I can just do this myself?
So there were a couple of things. I'll say that there's a couple of those moments, right? Because I get asked that quite a bit. Is your discipline in what you're doing, is that attributed to the military? Were you like that before the service? Is that corporate America? What is driving you just to constantly do this, right? And I will say that the military it did instill that of just keep going, right? Because prior to the military, man, I was the laziest guy you'd ever meet. And we've talked about this a couple of times. The body is capable of so much more than the mind will allow, right? Like when you're doing your distance running and in your self-talk is, I can't do this anymore. But you know that if you change that attitude and you keep going, right, you're going to finish the race. And so that's been mine. Now, when I got into real estate, it was my kids were still at home. They were still young. I still had mortgage payments to make, right? I knew the lifestyle I wanted to create. And so I had to be able to block out that negativity. I had to block out the naysayers of, you're never going to succeed. You can't do this. It's so hard. The market is terrible, right? You've got to stop. You got to get that out of your head. And you just have to say, at all costs, we're going to make this happen. And I've tried to keep that mentality over the years at all costs, right? No is not an option for me. And so it's just that wherewithal to get up and keep going. My mentors, such as yourself and some of the other coaches, it is procedure, it's process, it's day in and day out. You're going to have your good days and your bad days, but that's okay. Don't celebrate too much at the highs, but don't get down on yourself on the two lows. Just keep going. And that's what, as I look back, that's been that's the secret sauce, right? You just have to keep going.
You do. And I think, even that evolution that we all go through, and even agent to CEO, and the whole coach code philosophy, it is around, right, systems and processes, and that's where we have to really to the extreme of probably the best example of that is probably from a sports analogy is Kobe Bryant, and not thinking about the championships, but focused on the day-to-day, right? The day-to-day process of, putting in the work, but just trusting and loving the process. That's where, if we can find those dopamine hits in the day-to-day, that's what keeps us going. And there's just so many of those little things from that. I think too, the military experience, just not, myself, but a couple of my buddies that have, the military experience, and how it forced them to grow up and mature so much faster. Just even seeing my son, right, coming up on his first full year in the Air Force Academy, being at the Air Force in South Korea, getting ready to transfer over to Germany. He, just how much he's matured, how much he's grown, and really the way he thinks and the way he handles and attacks each day. So I think that there's obviously great examples to pull from, but like you said, man, it's just, it really is falling into to a process, and really trusting that and loving that more than anything.
Well, for me, the process, was important. We know that after we find that client that says, yes, this is the right house, right, it's process driven, and I'm not very good at keeping everything in my head. And so very early on, I started drawing out that process, right? Day one, I need to say congratulations. Day two, did we get the, did we get out the earnest money? Day three, have we scheduled inspections? So I was creating processes even as a single agent to make sure I stayed on track, right? To make sure that there wasn't any spillage. And some of those processes we still use today, right? So it was just really important to have that process down so that you knew every step of the way where this client was, or what the next steps were. So yeah, it kind of goes back to that, just knowing what needs to get done, right?
Yeah. And I think, for you, besides, your wife holding up the mirror and probably shaking you to your senses, what is, because I see that a lot, right? I see that a lot with agents, particularly as what we're, kind of keeping that frame of mind of who we're talking about, that try to do it all on their own, that have a hard time of delegating. And like you said, it's just, I've got all these jobs. This is my job to do all of this, but really stepping back and like, hey, I need to think of this as a business, and really trying to build a business around it. Meaning, we have a direction, we have a clear, ideal client, we have, a business model structure that has a budget and profitability. I understand my roles, what I'm the best at. I'm creating leverage. I'm, really building out support and leverage and a team that allows us to focus on, creating opportunities, converting those opportunities, and then delivering on that promise we're making to them, and really treating it like a business. But I see it so many times, right? Like you said, how you started out for 2 years, thinking that you can Superman your way through it.
Right.
I mean, why is that, in your opinion?
So I don't mean to sound harsh, but I think it comes down to ego, right? Nobody can do this as well as I can. Nobody's gonna, my customer isn't going to love somebody else. I have to be that point person, right? I have to be I have to be all things to all people. And when you learn to get out of your own way and hire the right people, it becomes a blessing.
Mm.
It comes back to the who, not how, right? That was just that book really struck me hard. And so it's not that you're stepping out of the way, but there are things that you can get off of your plate and give to somebody else, and chances are they can do it better than you can.
Right.
But it leverages and frees up so much time. And what I've learned over the years is customers are completely fine with that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? They adore my staff, right? They adore the other agents on the team to the point that sometimes more than they like me. And for me, that's a testament to the team that we've put together. So don't hesitate to get that stuff off your plate. Even it could be something as simple as just the receptionist who answers the phone, right? Just get it off your plate. Start small, but once you do, all of a sudden the light bulb comes on. Like, why didn't I do this years ago? Because I'm getting so much more time back. And as long as you're putting the right people in place, they'll excel and they'll take it beyond your wildest dreams.
Do you think it's also a little bit of a I don't know if it's a fear or an uncertainty or a lack of confidence in being able to get the right person there to help them?
It is. Absolutely. So for me, making that first hire for me was a very scary moment, because when you hire somebody or you elect to bring somebody onto the team, and they say yes, what they have said is, I'm going to put my financial interest in your hands, right? I'm going to put my family's well-being that you're going to pay me whatever we agreed on. For me, I don't take that lightly, right? If something went sideways and I failed, okay, that's fine. I can have that conversation with my wife and kids, like, hey, look, you're not eating today because I didn't kill anything. But when it's somebody outside of the family that puts that type of trust in you, it can be a really humbling moment. And there are times where it causes fear of, I don't know if I can do this, right?
Yeah.
And now it goes back to just shut up and get back to work,
Right.
and make it happen, right?
Right.
Um,
Letting them down. You don't
yeah,
want to let them down.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for me, that was a big moment. It took me quite a while to recognize that, hey, we've really got something here, and it's continuing to grow and build. So have the confidence in the processes you put in place. It's gonna work out.
No, I love that. And but I think having a direction, right? So like for you, besides maybe being bored and looking for something to do,
That's right.
like what drove you, right? You working those 80 hours a week, beyond that, but to keep going, like what was the driving force for you?
It's the same thing that drives me today. It is, you get to play a small part in somebody's big picture. And we diminish the importance of our role as real estate agents, right? And I'm not talking about CEO or team lead or anything else. Each agent, you think about the last client that you worked with, and talking to the audience, whatever their situation was, you helped them gain a milestone in their life, right?
Mm-hmm.
Whether it was that first time home buyer who scraped together and pinched every penny together because they've only rented for their entire life. You've just made them a homeowner, right? And in 3 to 4 years, or however crazy this market is, some of my guys have experienced great equity in 12 months. You've just put more money in their pocket than a lot of these guys will earn all year long, right?
Mm-hmm.
Adversely, if somebody's in a pinch and they need to sell pretty quick, you have the ability to help them, and make one of the biggest financial decisions of their life. That's not something that I take very light. I mean, that's, to me, that's my personal gain out of that, is being able to truly help somebody who would otherwise be clueless on even where to start.
Yeah, no, I love that. And it's the shift from, hey, I'm not making sales. I have an opportunity to serve.
Correct. Yeah. That's been my mantra the entire time. Right.
Yeah.
How can I best serve you? And And whatever that answer is, if it's in my wheelhouse, then we do it.
I think too, in a lot of the growth and the evolution and the things that we're talking about, right? It's all mindset. It really is where
Absolutely.
everything comes down to, and it's just, obviously the action, will allow us to push through any of the resistance that our mind tries to throw up
Correct.
at us. As we're just wired for protection, right? And
Sure.
so it's being able to get through that. But I think the shift there, Matt, and where I see a lot of agents that meet that fear of false fear of call reluctancy or conversation reluctancy or reaching out to people, it's like, what value can I add? And it's like, no, I'm here to serve and help you identify, and it's the easiest process if you just break down is like, okay, I'm just really curious of what you're trying to do.
Correct.
And it really is around the best analogy and thought idea of, man, think about it. If you go to the doctor and you walk in there with, whatever the case may be, right? You walk in with a broken arm and he gives you something, for your sore foot, right? Or something, right? Like it's the whole diagnosis and the actual treatment of really what's going on. And I think when you're just coming from a place to serve and you build your business and your business model around, okay, hey, we're going to serve these people.
Correct.
That are looking to do something in today's market. And I think that's applies because what happens, and especially with you getting licensed 15, 16, 17 timeframe. So you got, the years leading up to the unicorn years of 20, 21, 22, getting into where we're at right now. But when you're built on a philosophy and a foundation of, hey, it doesn't matter. We're here to serve. We'll find out what they're trying to achieve, what their choke points are, what their challenges, their problems,
right,
and what are their desires, where are they wanting to go, and then us help creating the path and helping them get there.
Absolutely. And you have to understand that, right? And that's the mantra we've always taken, right? And I don't remember, if you take care of the client, and it sounds corny, but if you take care of the client will take care of you. And what I mean by that is the numbers will scale, the commission checks will come. I mean, that's what follows, right? But you have to stay true. You have to stay true to best servicing the client, right? Take yourself out of that equation. It's not always the easiest, right? Sometimes you're put in some real challenging situations. But it's been my experience, those challenging situations is what really cements that relationship, right? It's what's really what makes you kind of their go-to guy, if you will, for all things. So,
right.
So, yeah.
And it really becomes, that's where, ultimately we're looking to go deep. And I believe no matter what happens with real estate over, between now and the end of the decade, it's still always going to come down to a decision of trust. It's always going to be relationship driven. And what are you doing to continue to add value, build trust within the community that you serve? And that, we're looking to create those raving fans that are not only advocates for us, but then start to promote us and promote and sends people our way. Matt, when you, first kind of surrendered to the fact that, you can't play Superman forever, and you started the transition and like, okay, hey, let's step back. I've built successful business and let's start to treat this like a business. What were some of the initial things that you did in the beginning to really create that infrastructure to allow, to build a solid foundation to get you to this point?
Sure. So I took I took an honest look at what does day-to-day operations look like, right? What are all the different hats that you're wearing? And I just started by saying, okay, and I literally wrote them down on a list. And okay, here are the 20 things I do. Here are the top 6 things that I hate doing, right? So we know if you don't enjoy doing something, you're going to procrastinate. Well, and in this industry, when you procrastinate, there's consequences. So I took that as kind of my top 6 things. These are the 6 things I need to get off of my plate. And that's what I assigned off to my assistant and said, all right, here are the 6 things that you're going to do every day. inevitably, she was able to take those items, make them better, accept responsibility of those, but then it started freeing up so much more time. And I try to take a look at that every 6 weeks or so. Okay, what else is on the list? How is that working out? So I just didn't vomit like, here, you take it, right? It was systematic. And I really took my time on training that person, to make sure that she understood how to accomplish a mission, what the feedback is I'm expecting to get out of it, and then what do we need to do to tweak the process to work better for her. And that's what we've done. We still have those conversations on a weekly basis of, okay, what else can we do? And so Regine's role has scaled, and now she's become an integral part of the business, but she's been there lockstep the entire way of saying, okay, I'm ready for more, send it my way. And so now that's what I did to start. I started by looking at, what is it you don't like doing, and then stop doing it. Right. That allows you to do more things that you love to do.
Yeah. And it's a constant inventory as we continue to grow and progress. I mean, you get things off your plate and then new things come on
Yes, absolutely.
as you continue to keep that progression and continue to keep growing. And I get that. And maybe the answer is still the same for somebody that is more higher D driven, that lacks a lot of I don't want to say details, but a lot of the structure. They're more operator to where they get shit done, but they leave a wake of destruction in their path, and that no rhyme or reason or repetitive way other than what's in their head, and always doing the right thing. However, they are not system driven, checklist driven. Like, what do you say to those type of agents? And I know you've had people come on the team that embody that are just, they get shit done, but they're a train wreck, right? It's like a tornado coming through.
Absolutely. And I'll say it from time to time. That's me too, right? I get shit done, but I leave a wake of bodies behind me. So what I did, because and with any entrepreneur, we get an idea and we want to implement and we want to go. We fail to write it down, right? I'll document this later, but right now I'm just going to run with this. What I did specifically when I first started doing this was, I literally, to come up with those 20 things, I recorded my screen from the time I got out of bed in the morning to get my first cup of coffee. All right, when you sit down at your desk, what are you doing? And I clicked record. And here are the steps that I did, right? I checked on my listings. Did I get any new contracts? I looked through email. All of those little things that make up our day. And I sent her the recording and I said, study this. Here are the things that I would like you to take away. And by the way, I want you to document everything that you've done. Justin Nielsen over at Sphere Rocket was instrumental in helping me work through that, because that's the easiest way I knew how to get out of what's up here and onto paper. And that started creating our operations procedure. Now, anytime we introduce a new technology or a new workflow or anything like that, I still go back to that original idea. This is the easiest way for me to get it out of my head and into somebody else's hands. And now they can digest it. They can understand it. They can ask intelligent questions if I have left something out. But it also sets the expectation of, here's what I expect. Here's the results I expect to see. So that has helped us out tremendously along the way.
Yeah. And man, and just with, the power of AI, being able to record that and then being able to dump it into even, into an AI platform to break it apart of, okay, hey, translate, put this into written word, take the written word, put it in Chat GPT, clean this up and organize it into a process of how to check emails, right? Like, thinking to where leverage what is available to us to help us be more efficient and in the things that we don't have to exhaust mental energy that we have no business doing. Correct. And I remember this lesson for me early on. sitting with Kinder, and he's like, man, hey, we've got to dial in our listing presentation. We got to dial in our buyer presentation. We need to nail a recruiting presentation. He's like, oh, I was like, okay, cool. Like, what do we need to do? He's like, man, let's get after it tonight. After work, we'll put it together and we'll start working on it. And I'm like, cool. I'm going to walk next door. I grabbed a, 12 pack of beer and had, Reedy and Jay and myself. And we're sitting there and, they're kind of talking through it. They've got, presentation slides opened up, and I'm sitting there, and it might've been the beer, right? Maybe I was a beer or two in, and I'm like, I looked at him and I said, fellas, this is the dumbest shit in the world that we're trying to do. Like, we have no business doing this. And said, who do we need to hire that can do this for us? Yeah. And we kind of talked about it for a second, and Reedy goes, man, I might have somebody. I know somebody that she is, her degree is in marketing, and she works for whoever the head of marketing at the college there in Lawton. And we said, okay, cool. Reach out to her, see what she says. Literally met with her for less than $500. She created three presentations, bad to the bone presentations.
Correct.
Fast forward, she ends up coming on board, being our head of marketing. Fast forward, she ends up running in EA. And it was all through just being able to step back and say, what the heck are we trying to do? Like, this is dumb. And it goes back to your whole thing you said earlier, is the who, not how concept. And you're better off leading with that question than you are trying to ask yourself, how do we figure this out?
100%. So even with my background, and we've talked about this one in the past, we were making a pretty big database migration. My background, I love databases. It makes me a geek by definition. But with other facets to the business, all right, I relent. I can't do this. Right. So we boarded an official database administrator, which sounds so counterintuitive, because everybody I talk to is like, well, Matt, you're the tech, you're the geek, right? You know all this. I do know it all, but I also know that I'm not the right guy for this job. Right. So, yeah, just back to the who, not how, put it in somebody else's hands, and don't be afraid, just like you did with her, start small, right? Yeah. Hey, I need a contract job. When I started, I just did a tip fee at closing, right, for some of my coordinators. I was young. I was small. I wasn't ready to bite the bullet of payroll and taxes and everything else. So here's a tip fee, right? And you just start. The other advantage to doing it that way is you really, after working with somebody, now right? You know their character, you know their work ethic. I'm just a Midwest boy. I'm terrible at judging character. I take it at your word. If you say you're going to do something, you're going to do it. And what I've learned is, it's after you've worked with somebody for a little while, you get to find out what are their strengths and weaknesses, and are they really doing what they said they're going to do. Yeah. So I've found that working on a contract or a part-time basis really helps, because now you find out, do we gel well, right? Do we get along? And if so, maybe the conversation goes further, or maybe it doesn't. But
to your point, I had a great conversation with client yesterday, and we were talking about, he's like, man, I've got this guy, he's probably available, he's perfect, but I can't afford him. He's 6 figures, and I'm just not going to be able to. And I'm like, what, really, where do we need his expertise the most? And he was like, here. And I'm like, bro, you can probably get him for 2 hours, 2.5 hours a week in a fractional capacity. And for him to just being able to mentor a lead, he'll probably give you a hell of a discount to be able to do that, to be able to, for him to be able to pour into you. And I'm like, get him for an hour here. You've got your 2 admins, give him 30 minutes here, 30 minutes here, 30 minutes with you to decompress, change things you need to think about over the weekend, come back together. All 4 of you meet on Monday, kick off, clear, know what you need to do for the week, and just attack it in a fractional basis. Yeah. But so many people they don't understand what are all the ways, right? This goes back to thinking and having mental models and ways to rethink through the situation. And it's like, oh, they immediately think, man, I got to get this guy. He's going to cost me 6 figures. How do I do that?
Right.
And it's more of, I only need him for a couple hours a week. And if I can have him here in this role, now I can afford it. I can get it into my budget. I can do that.
Yes.
And so I think it's just, not allowing any of those constraints. Most of them are artificial, right? The artificial
Yeah,
constraints in our
absolutely.
head
Yeah,
to stop us from making that progress.
absolutely. I've learned, keep asking what if, right? How else can I do this? When you run into something just like in that example, man, I can't afford this guy for 40 hours a week. Quite frankly, you probably don't have 40 hours worth of work for him to do. So let's, even if you did hire him on full time, he's going to sit there twiddling thumbs for 38 of the 40 hours. And then you're going to be upset with yourself because you don't feel like he's doing the job worthy of what you're paying him. So think outside of the box, right? What do I really need? What's the core construct? And if you just look at it and go, well, I need somebody to do everything, you're not thinking hard enough, right? You got to get real. You have to have a real conversation with yourself. What is it, and focused? What is it I'm looking for? And that helps get clarity on and leading, giving you a path to go, if that
Right.
makes sense.
Well, I love that right there, what you said, because the next question is, okay, what is everything?
Yeah, exactly.
And then, you're going to get a different answer. And then, okay, well, what about that is most critical?
Correct.
What about that is going to remove the constraint around only three things in our business? It's going to remove the constraint around traffic. It's going to remove the constraint around conversion, or it's going to remove the constraint around fulfillment, which is delivering on the promise that we're making to get the traffic and converting people, to get them the result, because that's all people ever want. That's all only people buy. That's all they buy is results.
They don't care how the sausage is made. They just want the sausage.
That's it. They want Maui. They don't care about, you have to get up at 3:30 in the morning and, deal with people that you don't want to deal with on, 4 different connections that you have to make on this flight. They just want the beach. They want the beverage on the beach in Maui. That's all they want. They don't want to know about how they have to get there.
Yeah.
And I think the more that you can get down to that and realize that, and then it's like, okay, well, my constraint is I'm getting people, but because I'm so busy trying to go get more people and trying to convert people, I'm not doing a good job at helping them get the results they want. Okay, great. Then we need to get them to focus on helping you deliver on the promise you're making. So it's not everything. It's
Correct.
this, getting really, really clear on that specific constraint as you are, because, the reality, and you can speak to this in, 17, 18 timeframe, when you decided to stop being Superman and get some help, you had a different constraint than you do today.
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah. And I think it's through natural progression, right? You had said earlier on, you're going to fix one problem and it opens up, not a problem, challenge. You're going to fix one challenge, but it's going to create two or three other challenges. That's the way. What I've learned is this is just the way this business goes. The more you scale this, and they're fun challenges, I guess I should say. That's is after you make the first one and you look back and you go, well, that wasn't that difficult. Let's keep going. Before you know it, I mean, the challenges that we face on a daily basis, they're fun. I almost look at it now as, okay, what's the cool next thing to fix this, right? And it really is a lot of fun.
It is. That's the best attitude to adopt. And the reason is that, and this goes back to your comment about endurance events and stuff. And, you look at a lot of these great endurance athletes, and most of them, you'll see just this like crazy smile, or they're laughing, and, they're in pain. I mean, they're, 90 miles in on a 100-mile foot race, and they're just smiling or they're laughing. And the reason is that because it tricks our brains into not realizing the amount of pain our bodies are in.
Right.
And it's the same thing, right? It's just like, even in just, okay, what's the opportunity here? Let's have some fun with it. And it's just, your attitude that you get the choice, you get to choose how you want to perceive it.
Correct. Yeah. That is, it's mindset, right? Yeah. What's
so
the
good.
opportunity here, right?
Yeah.
If I can mediate this challenge, what does that do? Right. Yeah. What's the game? So.
Yeah. I like to ask, hey, what's the lesson? Where's the opportunity? Where's our next move? Absolutely. How do we progress forward?
Yeah.
And
I was just mentoring an agent right before we hopped on here, and she was she was pretty upset because she said, Matt, I just ended up buying new carpet for my buyer's home that we moved in because I made a mistake. And she was so down on herself. And I just told her, look, it's an education. It's a learning opportunity, right?
Yeah.
And I just reminded her, education is never free, right? We're going to pay for it in a 4-year degree, or we're going to pay through it through hard knocks. I said, we've all made that mistake, right? And I just let her know this is an opportunity to learn, right?
Yeah.
And so consider that lesson learned. And
Yeah.
as soon as I said that and changed her mindset a little bit, you could tell just over the phone, and just the spirits were lifted.
She'll never forget that lesson.
Yeah, you're never going to forget it, right? But don't beat yourself up over it. Fix it, correct it, charging forward.
Hey, Matt, before we wrap up, I mean, I would just love to get your, from the CEO seat and just kind of navigating the waters and kind of looking into the future a little bit. Here we are, approaching, year end and really thinking about how we're going to set up, Q1 and really, I mean, almost getting to the point of, how do, what's the momentum we want to build going into the first quarter that's really going to allow us in most seasonal markets to capitalize on the spring as we launch into Q2. So for you from, that vantage point, head of company CEO role, I mean, where is your focus, main initiatives and kind of maybe that theme or mantra that you're not only telling yourself, but you're really reinforcing back into the rest of the organization?
So what we're conveying to our client, well, from the top down, so from the CEO down, from a messaging standpoint, we're messaging clients that we're here, right? So we're driving home the relationship, not just are we ready to buy, sell a home. There's a lot of fear out there right now in the market, and I think that carries through over into Q1. Right. I think the data shows that we should start seeing a little bit of relief towards the end of Q1, beginning of Q2 next year. But right now it is. So fourth quarter is easy because now we're coming into client events. We're coming into the holidays, and we'll do something just after the first of the year too. But right now it's about listening, paying attention to the clients, servicing their needs, knowing that their needs may not be to buy or sell a piece of real estate right now, but that's okay. Just staying present and letting them know that there's somebody here. So the reason why we're doing that is here locally, look, we're at 8% interest rates, inventory's at a record low. People are kind of panicking a little. And so I don't want to equate it necessarily to COVID, because COVID, we were sending out, hey, it's going to be okay. We're going to make it through. If you need something, please let us know.
Yeah.
But it's a similar message that, hey, the world's not coming to an end. Education is a big one, because if you watch the evening news, it's the worst time in history to buy a home. I was just watched that on our local broadcast a couple of days ago. Now, being able to step back in and reinforce that with data of why that's not true, I find brings my clients a lot of relief. I did a video on that over on my YouTube channel a few weeks ago. It's one of the top rated videos I've done. The world is not ending, and here's why, right? As far as it relates to real estate. So dispelling some of those myths. So right now we're focused on relationships, education, and that's what pays tenfold, right? We go back to service your clients and they won't forget you. Yeah. And that's what we're doing. It's a message of compassion.
That's such a great takeaway for everybody listening in, is that, create that content, because that allows you and your team to be able to get it out when you're having conversations with other people. It's like, hey man, I was just on a podcast, or I just did a quick video about this. Let me send it over to you. And I talk about this point exactly. And you create that content, and that content is so powerful because, people, it's the least amount of trust that we've ever had. And people just don't trust. And so they need to consume, and the more they consume, they build a little bit more trust. Yeah. So that's why content creation is so important, but it needs to be content that you can get to the people that are warm. And even your cold people that don't even know who you are, they see you, they're going to go seek you out. They're going to check out your reviews, and then they're going to check out your content. Yep. And you better have some content that's educating them, that's overcoming the myths, the misinformation, the fear that, that is being put out there primarily by the media, because you got to remember, the media is a business model. That's what I just like, you got to understand, what is their business model?
Yeah.
Their business model is to get attention. And when they have attention, they can sell advertisement. They're in the business model of advertisement.
Yeah.
And so you have to understand what they're trying to do. What is their objective? And then you trace the money back, right? Who owns them?
Sure.
They're going to dictate what type of fear they're putting out there.
Yeah.
And it's no different. It was funny. I mean, you would appreciate this. So my son's in South Korea, and I talked to him the other day, and I'm like, hey man, do they have you guys on alert? Do they have you kind of anything like that? And he said, Dad, let me tell you something. That's the biggest bunch of bullshit in the world. No, it's day to day. That's all BS. It's all, it's not what's happening, right? What you're seeing on the media is not happening. We're not on alert. We're not thinking anything different. It's day to day. It's what we do.
Yes.
And I'm like, okay, cool. That's all I needed to hear. I said, now, if it changes, will you let me know? He said, of course I'll let you know, but it's not going to change. Absolutely. So it was just funny hearing that from him, because I was kind of listening. I was leaning in, and a little different when your son's in the military, especially in South Korea, kind of leaning in a little bit, Matt. And I'm like, hey buddy, you good? You good? Yes. They don't have you guys doing anything? He's like, no, Dad, no. I was like, okay.
Absolutely. Right. Yeah, no, I totally understand. And so, but yeah, you're right. You have to remember that the media is that. And if we wanted to talk about content and strategies, we could talk all afternoon, but that is the exact script that I use when I'm talking to clients working to build that relationship is, hey, I just shot a video on this, right? Can I send you the link? And we go back to just being hit over the head for years. I was reluctant to do a lot of video. I'm old. I'm starting to get gray. I'm a little pudgy, right? I have a face for radio. And the coach says, just shut up. This is what you look like. Get used to it, but there's so much good education. And we put out educational content. We don't put out opinion pieces. We don't put out, we don't put out things that I try to be very neutral and just state the facts. And when you do that, customers really appreciate it, right? You're going to build trust and rapport without you even being on the phone or texting with the client. They've already stalked you on Facebook, right? They've stalked you on YouTube and everywhere else. Make sure that stuff looks good, right? Yeah. Make sure, and take the good with the bad. Just be honest, be yourself, be sincere. If you've made a mistake and somebody posts a review and tells you, I don't want to work with John, he really screwed the pooch. Look, reply to the comment, own it. Did you make a mistake? If you did, cool. We're only human. Right? So
just own it.
Nobody's perfect in this industry.
That's it, man. No, I love it. Yeah. Matt, I appreciate you, brother, jumping in and adding a ton of value and really, kind of helping us shape and navigate really what it takes to not only become the CEO of our business, but the CEO of our life, and really putting in and focusing on the things that matter, and let the results speak for themselves.
Well, John, thanks for having me. It's been an absolute pleasure. I look forward to catching up with you soon.
You got it. Appreciate you, brother. See you guys. Bye.